Not gonna lie, I don't know where this video is gonna go. So just buckle down and let's have some fun. Welcome back to the least professional channel on YouTube. How's everybody doing today? So this is kind of an impromptu video. So a little bit of background. I've got a list of video topics that I keep that I go through. Anytime I come up with an idea for a video or something that might be good for a video, I'll write it down on this list. Usually I go off of that list when I'm making videos because it's a good way to come up with ideas and write things down. This isn't one of those videos. I was sitting here tonight on the fence about whether or not I was actually going to record anything because I wanted to get something recorded, but you know, it was one of those days that I just wasn't feeling up to recording necessarily. And I thought, well, I'll spend a little bit of time at least researching some things for the channel and coming up with some ideas. And as I'm researching, so I'm going to show you guys what I've got here. Okay, so as I'm researching, I start searching for paranormal news, and specifically paranormal news in Ohio. I wanted to kind of get an idea for things that, like, maybe were in the news, things that I could talk about and highlight on the channel, you know, a little bit of searchability, that kind of thing. And I come across this ParaPsyCon 3, Destination Mansfield. ParaPsyCon is a parapsychology convention. I don't know all of the history about it. I haven't really dug into the history of the convention, but that's not what this video is about. So I click on that link and it brings me up to a Destination Mansfield website advertising ParaPsyCon 3. And one of their celebrity guests, Coffey. Before we go into who Coffey is, if you don't know, I went ahead and went to the website that directed me then to the actual website for the convention itself, right? And it's happening this year in May, and I was curious and I was like, oh, I wonder what their ticket prices are, what they're like, you know, kind of get some ideas. Looking at the general admission, they've got a package sold out here for $395 a person. And as I'm looking through it, I look over and I see Coffey Gallery Reading. And part of that is readings may include general psychic information regarding career, finances, family, romance, etc., or may involve contact with a deceased loved one. So if you hadn't guessed already, Coffey is a psychic. He is very world famous. He's well known in the paranormal community, and he's been on Ghost Hunter TV shows, usually investigating a house, and he'll walk in and he'll talk about people who died there, or talking to ghosts, that kind of stuff. But he also talks to people and gives them advice, as it says here, the general psychic reading for career, finances, family, romance. And it's stuff that he's been doing for years. He's written books about it, he's been on all TV shows, all this stuff. And that got me really riled up. You know, there's a few things that every once in a while I'll hit on something that will just get me riled up. And before I started on YouTube, it was just a matter of sitting there and arguing to myself and yelling at myself, or yelling at the computer whenever something got me riled up like that. But now I've got a YouTube channel. So since I have a YouTube channel, it's a perfect time to get involved and and really kind of dig into some of this stuff, because psychics annoy the heck out of me. I don't know if you believe in psychics or not. Maybe you clicked on this video wanting to hear somebody's perspective that's not the same as somebody, you know, maybe you believe and you wanted to hear what does somebody who doesn't believe think. So the reason that psychics drive me absolutely insane is because these people, whether intentionally or not, will prey on people and will prey on their desires, will prey on what they're going for, you know, if they're missing a loved one, if they want to know the future. And let's face it, for those of us who have lost a loved one throughout our lives, it would be nice to be able to talk to them again. If somebody came up to you and said, I can connect you with your dead relative, that would be really cool. But unfortunately, what it boils down to 9 times out of 10 is they're giving people a false sense of comfort when they do that kind of thing. When they And there's a couple of different ways that psychics will do readings, and all of it depends on the circumstances. So in a situation where a psychic knows ahead of time who they're going to be talking to, if they know the name of the person, they'll do what is called a hot reading. And all a hot reading is they'll do research on the person or the location before they go do a reading on it. So if they know like the building that they're going to, they can research the history of the building. If they know the person, the name of the person, you know, they can get some information about the name of the person, and they can go into it with all of this information already available to them. And then they kind of bring it up as if, you know, the spirits are the ones telling them. If you've ever seen the TV show Psych, which is one of my favorite TV shows of all time, If you haven't seen it, you should check it out. But in Psych, the main character plays a man who he was gonna get in trouble in the very beginning with police because he was very perceptive. He'd been raised by his father was a police officer, so he'd been raised by him his entire life, and his father had ingrained in him like being super perceptive and noticing every little tiny detail, things that most people miss out on. And so he'd called in a bunch of tips to the police station, and they called him in and they're like, hey, you need to explain how you know this information that you've been sharing and all the stuff you've been calling in. And he's like, I'm a psychic. And he'll use his ability to perceive things and to pay attention to the tiny details and draw conclusions to make psychic readings. And there's times in the show that it does kind of hint at hot readings where he does, and he figures stuff out about somebody before, he goes and sees them. But that's one of the ways that psychics will read people. The other way is a cold reading. And what a cold reading is, if you've ever seen a psychic on TV, specifically I'm thinking like back in the day there was a guy named John Edwards. And he wound up being proven as a fraud and outed and basically destroyed his entire career because some of the tactics that he used. But he was a great example of cold readings. And basically what he'd do is he'd have a crowd of people. And this works if you can get a couple of people. You don't need a whole crowd. But, the bigger the crowd, the easier it is. And basically what you do is it's a matter of knowing the commonalities within society and the most prominent things. Things like last names, letters, preferences, things that people might be into in mass, so like sports or something, stuff like that. And what these psychics will do for these cold readings is stand out there and they'll yell things out into the crowd. The spirit world, I'm getting a J. Is there a J somewhere in the room? And then somebody will pop up and they'll say, oh yeah, my name's James. or is there a C? I'm getting a C. Oh, Catherine, and so then these people stand up, and then the psychic will start to throw out all of these things at them. I'm sensing that you lost a relative. I'm sensing you were very close to somebody that you lost, or there was some kind of a major turmoil in your life, and the person will kind of give them a little bit of details, and they'll take those details and glean what they can, and then they'll spit more out. And a lot of times, if you pay really close attention, you'll notice that there's a lot of misses in there. A lot of times where they get things confused or they get the wrong thing, but then they correct to go towards the right thing. And the reason why it looks like they're right, to the person that's being read, is confirmation bias. Okay, I can't remember the name of the fallacy. But so it's a fallacy to see the hits and ignore the misses. So when a psychic is standing up there and they are giving you information and it sounds like they're hitting on everything, and their explanation for the misses is usually things like, the spirit world kind of jumbles things and they don't always come across clear, so I've got to throw something out, and then it starts to clarify, and those kind of things happen. That's what cold reading is. That's how psychics will trick people into thinking that they're making a solid reading. Between these two tactics and just being highly observant and being really good at reading people, what it boils down to is that either psychics are purposefully misleading people and scamming people out of money, or they honestly believe that they're psychic because they're highly perceptive. Maybe their entire life they've just been really perceptive of things, and they've been follow your intuition and follow your instincts, and it happens to be right a lot of the time, and they ignore the times that it's wrong. And as they grow older, they get to a point where they're told by somebody, or they just believe that they're psychic, and they're giving people psychic readings and doing, and they wind up in a situation, most of them don't wind up world famous like Chip Coffey does, but they get in a situation where they are big enough or well known enough that if you question them, you start to have people coming after you, their fan base and that kind of stuff, that will people they gravitate towards these people because they tell them what they want to hear. I don't think, and like I said, this video was impromptu, so I didn't really look, but I've never seen any video of a psychic giving a person bad news. I've never seen a video of, and it's not to say that it hasn't happened, But I've never seen a situation where a psychic will tell a person, hey, you've got cancer, you need to go to the doctor. You need to get help for this. You need to go get chemo or whatever. I've never seen a situation where a psychic will tell somebody, your relative is suffering in hell, or your relative is in a bad place. Like, that kind of stuff never happens, because the psychic, if they tell somebody that, it's not what the person wants to hear. And in some cases, maybe, and it's kind of the hit or miss too, because if you're a psychic and you tell somebody you've got cancer, well, that's something that they can go to the doctor and verify. And if they go to the doctor and they find out that they don't have it, that hurts the psychic's credibility. So why would you make that big of a leap? It's a lot easier if you can kind of read the person's emotions and you can make a reading on them. And this is the case for every psychic. I'm going to be extremely clear in this. There is nobody that can read the future or speak to the dead. That's not a thing. And not every psychic is out to get money. Not every psychic is in it for the wealth. But a lot of psychics, if they're charging for their services, maybe you have a friend or somebody that you know that claims to be psychic, but they don't really do any professional kind of stuff. They'll just use their intuition to make predictions about things, and maybe there's somebody you go to and ask for their advice, and maybe they truly believe that they're psychic. They're really good at giving advice. They're really good at reading the situation and figuring out, coming up with like what they think is most likely to happen. And the problem is if that happens, that is a confirmation. If it doesn't happen, then it comes back to, well, I must have been reading something wrong. I must have been, the spirits must have been not saying the correct thing. I guess I really hate it because of the fact that so many people get taken advantage of. And I see things like this at this paranormal convention where Chip Coffey is going to be speaking, and they're charging people $60 per person to get a reading with him. And obviously they still have tickets, at least to be in the gallery. I don't know if, they've got VIP meet and greet here, and they've got a celebrity ghost hunt going on over here. So I don't know what the scheduling's like, or whether those tickets guarantee you a reading. From what I understand from the way it's talking, it sounds like the meet and greet's not really a reading session. The Chip Coffey gallery reading is more of, he's going to be doing cold readings, standing in front of the gallery and pointing people out and calling things out and saying that he's reading people. And unfortunately, there's going to be a lot of people there that have paid the $60 per person to get in to go and see this guy, and they're going to come out believing even harder based on what they see in person, if they've never seen him in person before. And it's duping people out of money. And Chip Coffey, I don't know anything about him personally. I've seen his professional stuff. I can't say for certain one way or another if he is truly trying to take advantage of people. From everything that I've seen, he appears to be genuine as far as like he really believes he's psychic and he believes that he's doing something good. So I can't say for certain that he's that he's trying to take advantage of people, but the fact is that he is taking advantage of people. And I've got a clip here. I'm going to try to play this clip and see. Okay, so I'm going to play this clip that I have here. This is from City TV on YouTube. They've got this clip from this TV show. I'm going to play this. I want to show this excerpt because as I was watching this, basically they had him on and they had call out to viewers to come in, and he would, they would pick a viewer and then he would read that viewer. I wanted to play this little section because this is him talking about, the guy's going to ask him first, what do you say to the skeptics? And then I want you to listen to his response.
Response that we had when we offered up a live reading with you was absolutely overwhelming, and in just a moment we're going to meet the viewer that's won this live sit down with you. But I also have to confess, we received some cynical emails, some comments from people who say that this is nothing but a bunch of hooey. What's your response to people that don't necessarily buy into the observations of a paranormal activity?
I try not to be someone who tries to convince or convert anybody to my ways of thinking. It's almost a futile conversation to have with those people because they're so set in their ways and so set in their ideas that it's just going to turn into a negative conflict. So Honestly, I don't really care what somebody else believes. That's all right. Believe what you want to believe. I'm going to believe what I want to believe, and we may never meet in the middle, but that's okay. I know what I've experienced. If you experience something that happens like this, you're going to be calling me to help.
Okay.
So, first of all, if you listen to the phrasing of what the newscaster is asking him, talking about, we got some cynical emails, some people saying it was all hooey. That's not the right way to phrase that question. And then, of course, his response is pretty much that he tries to avoid it because it'll be conflict and there's no getting through to those people. This idea of let's not have the conversation. I don't want to have the conversation because you don't believe what I can do. And there's no convincing you. We don't even bother having the conversation about it. And that's how they get away with it. Avoid anything to do with somebody that is opposing you and questioning you, and focus only on the people that believe you. And that last little point that he tried to make, where he basically said, when you run into a situation where you need somebody, you're going to be calling me, and that's not true. That's not right. And the idea being that, like, if you lose somebody, or if you're going through a rough time, and you want to know what the future is going to be like, that's not a healthy discussion around any of this. And James Randi, if you don't know who he is, he passed away, but he was he called himself a magician first and foremost, but he was a skeptic of all things paranormal. And for years, he had an award that he was trying to give out if somebody could prove their paranormal ability, whatever that happened to be. Psychic was a big one that he would go after, and he actually debunked several big psychics at the time in the 60s and the 70s, people who were like really well known, who'd been all over TV, and he brought them onto his show with them saying, oh yeah, I can do this, I can prove that I'm psychic and win this award, and then they would fail. And it was always something. There's always, there's negative energy, or, there's too much, you don't believe me, so it makes it impossible to do it. And then he would demonstrate how these things were done. And no psychic ever, nobody ever, in the whole course of this, it was 30 years that this award was available, and people tried and tried and tried, and nobody could claim it, because under rigorous scientific standards, they were unable to back up and prove what they claimed. And Chip Coffey is no different than any of those people in that he's not psychic. Personally, I can't say anything one way or another about him. I don't know him personally, obviously. But what I can say is that psychics aren't a real thing. Chip Coffey's not a real psychic, because psychics don't exist. And never, under any scientific circumstances, has anybody ever been able to prove that they were psychic. And it's been tested. It's been tested over and over and over. And especially during the Cold War, the CIA was desperate to figure out if psychics were real, because they wanted to have that advantage. The Russians did the same thing, trying to prove psychics, and nobody has ever been able to do it. And everybody that has claimed that they were psychic, there is always an explanation, a method, that can be replicated. So I wanted to get that off my chest. I didn't want to make this video too long. Actually, I didn't know whether it was going to be long or short, but it'll either be out probably Wednesday or Thursday. I'm not sure which day but whichever day it comes out. Let me know down in the comments, what do you think about psychics? Do you think that psychics are real? Did you think that coming into the video? Did you maybe start to have questions or doubts throughout? Did I make a good case? Let me know down in the comments what your opinion is on psychics. And if it's your first time on the channel, I haven't been doing this a lot lately, but I would like to ask, if you've been around the video this long, hit the subscribe button. I'm trying to grow the channel this year. I've got a lot of big plans coming down the pipe for 2022, and it'd be great to have you on board. So if you want, hit the like button on the video. If nothing else, subscribe if you're not already subscribed, because I would really appreciate that. And that's all I've got for this video. This has been this was an impromptu thing. So I want to thank you all for watching, and everybody have a great day, and I will see you next one.